Hi everyone, welcome to Tari TV, where I bring the classroom to you. I'm Hannah John, and today I'm going to answer one of your questions, which is, should I co-author with my professor or not? Stay tuned. As I mentioned in a sneak peek video of fall 2021, a lot of the courses that I'm teaching this semester are actually writing or research intensive. And what that means is that a lot of the students have taken these courses with a view to hopefully getting published down the line. Now, one of the questions that I've received a lot from students is, should I co-author a publication with my professor? The reason for this is, potentially, there might be pros, but there also might be cons of doing so. And so I think I just wanted to provide a kind of frank opinion. Again, disclaimer that these are my opinions only, just based on my own experience, both as a student, a former student, and currently as a professor, and to give you some ideas from my own perspective. So I won't dodge the question, do I think it's a good idea to co-author with professors? In general, yes. If you are kind of set on working alone, that's perfectly fine. You're very free to do so, and probably you'll be able to learn a lot more just because of all the trouble and pain that you go through from the initial, not just the paper writing, but the submission process, selection of the journal, submitting the article, and following up on the article as feedback comes through. But what's so helpful about working with a professor, or perhaps more than one professor, is that they bring in a lot of this know-how and expertise and understanding of the process that you could really benefit from just by working alongside him or her or them. So there are two kind of parts to this. The first would be the actual paper writing, and the second part would be the submission of the article to a specific journal. Now, when it comes to the writing, this means both in terms of the structure of the article, the structure of the study, but also the way that the article is kind of laid out. Things like mechanics, even sentence structure, all of these things have a big impact on whether or not your paper or your manuscript might be ready for publication. So if you work alone, you're really alone. And this often means that you don't have the benefit of working with other minds and having another fresh pair of eyes to look at the manuscript. There just might be different expertise and ideas and insights that you might bring to the table that you might not otherwise have if you're just working alone. So having that guidance, having that kind of expertise and know-how, I think would be quite beneficial for you as you're preparing the actual paper for submission to a journal. The second advantage is when it comes to the actual submission process. And so even in terms of what journal you actually submit the article to, your professor or your advisor might have a better idea or many more ideas about potential journals that you might want to try to submit to. And this is probably based on prior experience in submitting to specific journals. They would also probably take into consideration the analytical rigor of the journal, fit with the journal. So is this journal very open to studies that you're looking at? And also things like time. Is this very urgent? Then you might want to journal that has a quick review process, as opposed to one that perhaps is not so time sensitive, and perhaps maybe you want to be more aggressive or ambitious in your journal selection. Again, if you're working alone, you might not have that benefit of getting that additional advice, so that might be another reason why it might be beneficial to work with a professor as a co-author. Now, I do have a few side notes and perhaps even warnings. First is not all professors are the same. Even in terms of ordering of authorship, how much ownership you have over the paper, whether it's in terms of the kind of the conceptualization of the paper or data and methods, or even in the interpretation of the findings. Depending on how your working relationship is with this particular faculty member, it might be incredibly beneficial and helpful, but it also might be a source of burden or stress. And so you probably know best when it comes to a particular faculty member, so please do choose wisely when you're working with other co-authors. Another word of caution is that many of your faculty members might have very strong views, and they might have published quite widely in this particular area. So depending on their particular views and their perspectives, that might of course inform the findings of this paper, and you have to be comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, I probably would discourage you from working with this particular person. Lastly, every now and then I do have a few students who are very protective of their work. They are not as receptive perhaps to things like constructive criticism or to any potential changes to their work. If we try to interpret that positively, it means that you take a lot of pride in your work and you're very careful in your analysis and so forth. But especially at the graduate school level, and even as scholars in this field, oftentimes we're working with theory, of course, not law, which means that we should be open to different interpretations, perhaps rightfully so, criticisms of our work and ways to try to improve that. And when we work with students and we provide feedback, this is not to put down students. But especially if we have agreed to co-author and our name also goes on this piece of work, we are doing our best to make sure that this is a quality piece of research, and we want the research to actually be as, as good as possible. But if you are not open to that feedback and you would much rather work by yourself, then perhaps co-authoring might not be for you. So hopefully this video gave you a better idea about some of the benefits of co-authoring with a professor or a faculty member, and perhaps even giving you some warnings about some considerations that you might want to think about before collaborating. So until next time here on Tidy TV, bye!